Hey, what's up, Exit the Matrix family? Bob here. Hey guys, I'm gonna kind of go off on a little different path today. We've been going into a lot of deep subjects and such, and I don't know, this morning, I just want to kind of play around with a little bit of what if theory. And I'm not saying that I ascribe to this. I'm not saying that I believe this. However, it can be possible, just looking at the way things are in this realm and trying to make sense of why we're here and why we don't know where we came from and why this world seems so chaotic. And what I'm talking about is this. What if we are some form of AI that was designed in the far past by either another highly advanced civilization that once lived here on Earth, or perhaps we were created as a worker class by an extraterrestrial race that once visited Earth. And what if we are essentially the AI or the created worker class race that ended up taking over this Earth and basically outliving our creators? And I know some of you are going to laugh and say this sounds absolutely foolish. And to be honest, like I said, I don't really ascribe to this theory. However, the more I think about it, there's a little bit of merit in it. And I got to tell you, I hope this isn't the case, because it's kind of paints a dark picture about humanity. And however, I think it's an avenue that we've got to, peek down, so to speak. Doesn't mean that I'm going to follow this road out and believe that it's the only way from here on out. It just, there's so many different scenarios to explain us and why we're here and everything, and why we don't have a memory of the past, and why the history on Earth is so lost in shadows. For those of you that have read or listened to Zecharia Sitchin's work on the Anunnaki, now before you start laughing and just claiming he's a Mason or he was a liar and he was just making all that stuff up and and all this stuff, I mean, I've heard it all. I can tell you that genuinely I feel he was being honest about his work, and it was his passion. I don't believe that he had a specific aim as far as like funding or people forcing him to teach what he taught. I've listened to other people that are highly respected, like Jordan Maxwell, interviewing Zecharia and claiming to be a good friend of his and claiming that he was genuine. Now some of you might say, oh, well, Jordan obviously must be part of it too. And I don't know, people. Do we really understand the people that we know around us? How many of us, honestly, have friends or family that work in high levels of military or government, and they have security clearances, and they are not even allowed to say anything to their own children or wife? And to the day they die, they will not let those secrets out because they swore an oath to well, we'll just leave it there, folks. I mean, if you're swearing oath to demons, you're swearing oath to demons. And obviously our world is controlled by demonic, or at least low vibrational human beings. parasitic human beings, psychopathic human beings, and they just so happen to run our military and our corporations and our government. So, if you're swearing oaths of secrecy to them and you're supposedly, I'm working for the government, I'm working for humanity, I'm a rah rah rah, I'm an amazing soldier and I'm a fighting for democracy and all this. You're full of shit, dude. Now, but I'm sure you all know some people like that, right? Well, anyways, I agree with some of Zechariah's work, and some of it I don't. I have a different take on it. However, his work on the Garden of Eden, the Sumerian version, the cuneiform version of Genesis and the Garden of Eden, which most of you don't know, and most of you will never even read it because it threatens your programmed religious Bible view of Genesis and why we're here and such. But let's look at what the Sumerians talk about. They basically talk about these Anuna gods that came from heaven down to earth. Now, that could be looked at as they came from space, outer space, down to earth. And for those of you that laugh, that are kind of the flatter dome type people, firmament, and that could be the truth. I'm not saying it's not. It just, maybe a different way for you to look at this is that maybe they were interdimensional beings and they came here through portals or wormholes or jump dimensions somehow. Maybe they have the technology. But regardless, the Sumerian version is that there were two brothers in that Garden of Eden, and that one of them was the commander of Earth. He was the military leader of the Anunnaki. And then you had his brother, Enki. Now, Enki was more of a scientist and a geneticist. That's why he's represented as the serpent. Most of your ancient religions worship the serpent figure as a symbol for wisdom. So just understand that. I know everybody always tends to think, oh my God, it's a snake. It's obviously evil, right? Because the Bible said it so. Well, what you're not understanding is that your Genesis version of the Garden of Eden was adapted from the Sumerian cuneiform. And those people that adapted that to their book slanted it towards their favor. And you got to understand that it wasn't verbatim that they took it from the Sumerians. They added some here, they took away some, just like every religion has done through time. Look at the Christian Bible. How many times has it been added to, taken away from, retranslated? I mean, over and over and over again, right? Well, think about this. If you're a scribe and you're copying off these ancient cuneiform tablets and you like what these teachings are, but you want to make it for your people, right? So they have an identity and they can feel like, oh, wow, we're the greatest on earth. Then you're going to change some of that and you're going to also make yourselves the heroes in the story. Well, anyways, according to the Sumerian tablets, there was also a half-sister. Her name was Ninmah. Or sometimes another name was Ninhursag. Now, it's interesting to note that Ninmah is where the word mama comes from, your mother. Now, she was sister to both Enki and Enlil, the two brothers in the Garden of Eden. She also had a hand in Adam and Eve. And you can actually find this backed up in the Greek mythologies, in the Egyptian mythologies with Isis, and many other ancient teachings around the world all collaborate this story. And essentially it is that Enki found humanoids that were living here on the earth. They were not very intelligent. They were barely above the level of a animal. They had some self-aware consciousness, but not much. And they took these creatures and they hybridized. They did not create Adam and Eve out of dust, like it says in Genesis, and I'm talking about the Sumerian version here. They genetically modified that humanoid by mixing their essence, their DNA, with those primitive humanoids that were on Earth at the time. They upgraded them. And this infuriated Enlil. Not at first. He wanted Enki to create this worker race because they needed workers. They needed people to build their civilizations and to gather food for them, to feed them. They wanted to be treated as gods. And being a more highly technological people on their home planet or their home world or dimension or wherever they came from, they probably had some kind of robotics that worked for them and did most of the menial work and gathering food and such and all that. Just like where we're going right now with robotics and AI people. They were looking for the same fix. And so Enlil wanted basically workers that were slave workers. He wanted them just smart enough to do the tasks that they required, but not a whole lot more intelligence than was needed. Well, Enki was the one, with the help of his sister, Ninmah, his half-sister, to hybridize this new race. And what infuriated Enlil was that when he was walking in the garden and he ran into two of the first prototypes that actually worked was Adam and Eve, Adapa and Tiamat. There's a few different names in the Sumerian tablets for this Adam and Eve couple. But Adamu, Adapa, Tiamat, the other name for Eve, I forgot it at the moment here. But anyways, you get the idea. So in Genesis, it talks about how they ate from the tree of knowledge. Well, that was because Enki, with the help of Ninmah, gave this worker class of slaves they were creating a higher level of intelligence than Enlil wanted. And they became self-aware. They understood, like, wow, I'm this living being, and what's going on here? And, oh, I'm naked. I don't want to, these other beings, they're wearing clothing. I want to wear clothing like them. And such started the story in the Garden of Eden. Notice some differences between the Sumerian and the Hebrew version, if it is Hebrew here that we're talking about. Because who knows how much that was passed down also. But one version is that God was mad at Adam and Eve for eating from the tree of knowledge, because then they understood what evil and good was, and they were meant to just not understand any of it apparently, and just supposed to just live in just ignorance about, good and bad, right? The the tree of knowledge. But see, Enki upgraded them to the point where they were self-aware. They became self-aware, and they understood what being naked was. They understood good and bad. And he was teaching them. This infuriated Enlil. He booted Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. In fact, there's actually a book about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, once they were kicked out of the out of the Garden of Eden. It's a Apocrypha book. It's really interesting if you want to read it. Well, the serpent was also kicked out of the Garden of Eden because Enlil was furious with his brother. So his brother took Adam and Eve, and he went. The accounts that Zechariah Sitchin talks about was that they were taken to Africa, to South Africa, in fact, and he set up a base there. And of course, that's where the oldest gold mines are found on Earth. Well, they continued to work with these prototypes, these Adam and Eve prototype humans, and they were able to get them to start procreating, and humans started spreading on the face of the earth. Now, there's another interesting thing in that Garden of Eden. It was called the Tree of Life. Now, this Tree of Life is depicted many, many times by the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian cultures. And you will know that famous Tree of Life carving by different adaptations of it, but essentially it's the same exact thing. Typically, you've got anywhere from 2 to 4 Anunnaki standing on each side of this weird-looking tree thing. And it's got like flowers on the ends of it. But if you look at it, it's really designed weird. It looks like the branches in the middle of it are intertwining like the DNA double helix structure. And at the ends of all the points of those are these little flowers. Well, there's 2 Anunnaki guys, and they're sticking little like weird looking devices or rods into different points of this Tree of Life. And you got 2 other, they're called different names, the Apkalus, some names for them. They're these winged creatures that are usually standing next to these 2 Anunnaki with wings that are putting these devices in the Tree of Life. And it's not hard when you actually read the Sumerian account to start kind of putting this together, folks, about what the Tree of Life was. It was showing you that they were tinkering with our DNA. The Tree of Life was designed in the same structure of our double helix, which there's no way that the Sumerian culture could understand genetics like that. We just barely discovered that here in the 1900s. But yet, they understood this. They depicted it in ancient carvings that are over 4,000, some as old as 6,000 or more years old. And those flowers represent the female organ, the genitalia, if you get my point. Oftentimes, even nowadays, it's, some people will say it's the flower, right? The flower of life. That's just like, think of a flower and like a hummingbird or, insects and stuff. They pollinate that flower by getting that pollen down. They suck the nectar out of the middle of the flower and then they mix that pollen in, and that's how, flowers procreate, that is. Well, it was symbolic of females, that's the seed is implanted, and then that starts life there. So they were depicting that they were genetically modifying human beings and that they were doing some kind of in vitro fertilization. And this is all quite clear when you read the Sumerian tablets. Now my question is that what infuriated Enlil so much, Yahweh so much, that Enki gave humans the ability to be self-aware, that they gave humans a higher consciousness when he wanted a simplified consciousness? We're going to talk more about this tomorrow, folks. I'm cut short. I'm here at work, and we're just starting to get into the nitty-gritty here. But just think about this a little bit. Could we be a form of AI that was given the ability to be self-aware, and we eventually overran the planet, and we overran these Anunnaki because there weren't that many of them, and we are many? And that would make sense if you think about who's ruling this world from behind the shadows. and they're trying to constantly cut our numbers down, if you get my meaning, and keep a control over us. And they treat us like we are animals. In fact, by law, by maritime law, you are considered an animal. Livestock. Some things to think about and chew on here, folks. And I'm not trying to bring any negativity in here. Understand this. I think in the universe, regardless, if they were somehow able to insert spirits into these avatar human bodies they created, or if consciousness chose to go into these bodies, or if they created us somehow that we became self-aware consciousness, regardless, I don't think that would stop the ability from us ascending, because this must be the path of all living things in the universe, that things ascend and grow to higher levels of consciousness. So regardless, I don't think that changes who we are, where we came from, but it is interesting to chew on. And I hate to leave you on a cliffhanger here, but we'll pick this back up tomorrow. And anyways, I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you later.